First of all, it's great to be back in College Park. Thank you for all you guys coming and getting the chance to share what we're about to do defensively. Um, Great time for the program. You know, we got the Hills Jones House, right? The Jones Hill House, rather. We got strong summer workouts. We have players buying in. We have, of course, we have the start of camp, start of training camp, and that's exciting for all of us. You, me, the players. Defensively, we're going to stop the run, contest the catch, pressure the QB, and win situational football. Just be good situational. All right. I coached here before. We had a few strong teams, went to back-to-back bowl games, and I believe that's where we are right now. We're ready to make that step. Back-to-back bowl games. I'm really excited to lead the defense. I think that as you look at us, we have 10 out of 11 starters coming back. And then we have some guys, as you say, those guys are pretty young. When I say young, it'd be somebody like Ruben Hippolyte. Ruben's young, but he's also one of those guys that played a ton of football for us. All right, so I'm going to open up for questions. But before I open up for questions, I just want to make sure you guys know that as far as injuries and stuff like that, that's not my wheelhouse. So I won't answer any questions about that. But as far as football, defensive football, how we're going to attack and play, I'm more than happy to answer those questions. So let's jump in. Any questions?
Dave Preston, WTOP Radio. Welcome back. I know it's easy to paint the broad brush. What are some of the biggest differences that we will see on the field defensively this year as opposed to last?
Okay, Dave, good question. So when you look at it, basically, we're going to be more 3-down look than 4-down, but that's been my background. I think anybody who's been not a fan, but somebody who saw me coach or followed my coaching tree, it's more three down than 4-down. So that'll be a big difference. Other than that, we're going to kind of start the season off how we ended the season, being close and contesting catches and trying to stop the run.
Hey, Coach. Ryan McFadden from the Baltimore Sun. Coach Loxley's entered a one-year anniversary of his National Coalition of Minority Football Coaches. I just want to get your thoughts on Locke's effort in terms of helping minority coaches in all levels of football across the country.
Ryan, that's a great question. I've always tried to be a person that, first and foremost, you know, I looked at myself as a coach. But as we look at ourselves as a coach, and you're a minority coach, that comes into play, you know. And so I want to make sure when I go step on the field as a minority coach, I do the best that I can be. First and foremost, because I'm a coach, but also because there's young coaches, Ryan, that are looking up to me, Coach Loxley and others, that this is how they do it. And I want to do it right. I want to be a man of character. I want to be a man of substance. I want to be a great teacher. And that's some of the things that Coach Loxley is really preaching and preparing some of these coaches in the coalition to get ready to do and be great leaders from minority coaches to be great leaders at colleges and NFL teams.
Hey, Coach. Great to see you. Right here.
There you go.
I know Jordan Mosley. Obviously, I know he's going to be, competing obviously for starting safety's job, and I know he looked really much improved in the spring game. And I'm kind of curious, just working with him a little bit closer now. What have you kind of noticed about what he's, I guess, his development and how he's kind of been carrying himself this offseason?
I think, Jordan Mosley, that's a great question. Jordan Mosley had a great offseason. When I say great offseason, we all say they're going to have some gains. Everybody should have some gains in the weight room because they have an opportunity not to have to play on Saturdays, not to put on the pads, so they have an opportunity to gain weight. What his gains was just football knowledge, knowing what we do and knowing how we do it. So he had a chance to look at it on tape, look at the tapes, and study the tapes, the install tapes that we have, so he can understand the defense and then know how we do it, technique-wise, where he should align, where he should have signed. So he did a great job this summer being prepared for those things.
Hey, Coach Matt Gilpin here with Terps. As a whole, the group didn't have a lot of turnovers last season. What is something you want to implement into them and see from them this season in order to jump that number?
That was Matt. That's an awesome question. I think that we played first and foremost. We played 5 games. That's not an excuse. But the more games you play, the more opportunities you have for some turnovers. The other thing is, to get turnovers, you got to be aggressive. We're going to be aggressive, so we're going to be attacking the football, whether it's run and forcing fumbles, whether it's pass in the air. I think that consistently we found some things that we do well. I think one of those things is play close coverages, whether it's man or match coverage, and that's because we have the speed and the corners that can do that. And I think we're going to be able to do that. I think that's going to cause more turnovers. Plus, we go through drills every single day. The way our practice is set up, we have opportunity to drill. Whether it's forced fumbles, whether to stop the stiff arm and then get a forced fumble, whether it's scoop and score, or whether it's tack the ball, our drills are geared at getting turnovers.
Hi, Wayne with Drip Talk. You seem to have some rising stars in the linebacking group. Can you talk about the depth and who jumps off the film at you?
Well, you say there's some rising stars. I think earlier I mentioned Ruben Hippolyte. I think he's doing a great job. I think Brandon Jennings, for instead of staying home and waiting to go to the prom or doing those things, he came in and had a great spring ball for us. And then just the inside linebackers as well as the outside linebackers are just getting better and better. I think the more they play, the better they get. I think Coach Brawley Evans is doing a good job teaching those guys on the inside, as well as Coach Zucker with those outside guys. So they're getting better. I don't like to mention tons and tons of names, but those two come to mind right off the bat. We like the depth. We like the depth. We have a solid 2 deep, so that when we get into the games in the fourth quarter, we can play our guys, because the second teamers or third teamer guys that also are special teamers can really help us in the second quarter, in the third quarter, so that we're strong in the fourth quarter.
Brian, dealing and learning and seeing Nick Cross in action, what makes him such a special guy back there? And I guess also looking at the defensive line, how do you plan on maximizing their impact this fall?
So, Dave, let me make sure. First, Nick Cross. I think Nick Cross, if you watch him, it's his want to. He wants to be a good player. He wants to be good in the weight room. He wants to be good in the classroom. So that's a big element to his game, is he wants to be good, and that shows. And so he wants to be elite, and he tries his best to be elite. Okay, now the next thing was the defensive line. And repeat that question for me again, please.
How do you expect to maximize their impact this fall? What sort of things?
Well, I think one of the things we found out towards the end of the season, and I say we because that was Saul. We saw that, and then when I come in the spring, came in February, take a look at it. We got together and we talked about it. One of the things we saw is that we do a good job playing blocks. We do a good job with displacement and playing blocks, and I think we need to take advantage of that. So I think that we're strong. We do a good job playing blocks. We're a gap sound team, and let's do that. But let's keep those guys fresh, and that's why the depth is so important when we talk about all the positions. But D line, the most important. Depth is very important, because those guys, every single snap is a collision. Every single snap is a car wreck. So that being the case, we got to make sure that we have enough depth so they can survive those car wrecks.
Hi, Coach.
Hey.
Jacob Richmond from the Diamondback. Appreciate your time. If I could ask, Coach talked a little bit earlier about how great teams, great programs are based around being player-driven. What have you seen so far that could indicate Maryland would be that kind of program?
There's tons and tons of examples I could give you, but the best example I could give you is our player run practices. Is that I've been a lot of places, obviously good and bad, and when you have player run practices and they know the coaches aren't there, they know it's easy to, one, have a slow tempo, two, not finish the script, not finish what's going on, and three, some guys don't show up. That wasn't the case with these guys. These players are truly bought in, and they're making sure they're holding each other accountable. everyone's at the player run practices. Everyone's at weightlifting. Everyone's running, and they're holding each other accountable. And that's what I think Coach was talking about.
Good morning, Coach. David Barnes with CTV News. This is kind of a follow-up to the previous question, and I know you said you don't like to necessarily mention names, but Coach Loxley mentioned this morning how Talia came in and he wanted to speak with the players separately. And I wonder if amongst the defense, there are guys that have come to you and sort of stepped up their role as a leader, wanted to say, what can I do as a leader? How can I do that for you?
Yeah, what's exciting about the defense is it's not just one guy trying to talk to the front of the group. It's a lot of guys. I think as quiet as Jordan Mosley is, he has stepped up and has addressed the group. Ruben is another guy that addresses the group and brings guys with him. He's a guy that looks at tape, and when he looks at tape, he wants to make sure he brings some of the other guys with him. I think that Tarheeb still, though he's a young guy, he's making sure when he talks to the other defensive backs and to the other defensive players that he does it from a leadership standpoint of what we should be doing right. So it's not one guy. I think they're all doing a good job of holding each other accountable. Now, we haven't had a situation where we felt like they felt like they had to have a players meeting. But if they did, I'm sure that they would do it correctly and we would be headed in the right direction.
The defensive line is returning a lot of players and has a lot of seniors on it with guys like Lautez Rogers and Mosiah Nazili Kite. What are you expecting to see from that group, not just from a leadership standpoint, but from a production standpoint?
It's hard to always predict production, right? That's a commodity that you say we want to be consistent. So when I say we want to be consistent, one of the things when I first walked up here, we talked about, Matt, was we wanted to stop the run. So I think that'll be a big indicator if we can stop the run. And we didn't do well versus the run last year, and that's unacceptable. So we're going to be a better team versus the run, and that means those guys play a big part, and that also means that we got to do a good job making sure that the guys behind them know what to do and know how to do it.
Scott Green with Rivals. When you look at the pass rush, you got on the edge guys like Chami, and you bring in a Damian Robinson. What do you kind of expect from those guys, and how has maybe Chami, improved from last year?
Okay, it's hard to say how did Chami improve from last year. Okay. I think all those guys have had great off seasons. Again, when you talk about off seasons, let's all be smart about this. When you talk about off season, really what you see is the guys' gains in the weight room and the guys' gains in the classroom as far as learning the defense and being able to go through a walkthrough and a practice that's led by other players. So when you look and talk to them about that, those are the gains we see. We really won't see. Should we practice today? Today is the first day, and I can answer that question after I have an opportunity to look at these practices. But that's usually when we see the gains. So I hope I answered your question. But it's once we start getting out there, once we start seeing those guys run around, we'll have a better idea of their growth. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Good seeing you.